Hello everyone, this is part 4 of What If Naruto Met Past Hinata, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. The kid was scrawny, not just from awkward adolescence either, but the legitimate hunger kind of scrawny. He had wild spikes of honey for hair and some of the stormiest grey eyes Hinata had ever seen. And he was being held in Naruto's, their, house, quite against his will. Looks like I did more damage than I thought, Naruto mused, looking at the horrible cut down his back. He smiled at the boy though, the fox-like grin spreading over his cheeks. You put up one hell of fight. The kid, whose name Hinata had come to find was in fact Sora, only scowled. Yeah, well, you're not walking around with a 3-inch gash in your back, now are you? He grit out as Hinata applied the peroxide and then the herbal remedy she'd concocted just for the occasion. Naruto's face became serious. You were going to mug that kid. Sora rolled his eyes. He owed me money. That isn't the point, Sora. If you ever intend on being a shinobi of my Konoha, you can kiss those kinds of juvenile antics goodbye. You are here to protect those people, not take from them. Hinata paused briefly from cutting the long STS of gauze, but thought against saying anything, opting for instead laying gingerly on his wound. He hissed and Naruto shook his head. Why did he owe you money, Sora? He said quietly. Sora looked to the left. Quote. He didn't. Naruto slammed his hand on the table and Hinata jumped, starting to wake up. The boy had been dropped off at the house at 11:30, just when Hinata was ready to go to bed. Iruka was beside himself, saying he'd been looking everywhere till he found him behind the old district of apartments that were about to be taken down. Broke down an entire chain-linked fence just to get in. Iruka exclaimed wildly, rubbing his forehead. You know, next time Sasuke isn't going to let him off so easily. Naruto had expressed the same feelings, pulling the irritated boy inside, ordering he sit and let her have a concerned look at his back. Damn it, Sora. If you need to eat, you come to me. He shouted, staring him down, eyes brimming with compassion. Hinata witnessed something strange then, as she put tape on the gauze, feeling the ribs under his skin. Why didn't you just say you were hungry? Naruto pleaded. Why didn't you just ask me? The boy began to tremble. Quote. I hate asking you for help. How am I supposed to be something if I have to ask for help? You of all people should know how that feels. To feel like an inconvenience. Naruto put a hand on the boy's shivering head. Have you eaten today? No. The voice was a whisper, and when he said it, the shaking increased. No, sir. Naruto sighed and looked at Hinata with a weak smile. You have plenty of that stew left, right? She nodded. Hi. He can have anything. I'll fix W whatever he likes. She added, watching as Sora stared at the hands in his lap, fingers curling into his pants. She got up quickly, almost running to the kitchen, turning on the burner in a flash. She'd make him eat till he got sick, she was so worried for that poor boy. Behind her, she could hear Naruto talking to him soothingly and the kid started to sound perkier as they conversed. I see you finally got the handle on that new jutsu. Incredible, by the way. Naruto said casually, scratching his head. Sora nodded. Yeah, I've been working on it. Ha, don't I know it, didn't even see it coming. Sora laughed in a hoarse voice as Naruto pointed out his black eye, one that, to Hinata's intense confusion, was rapidly fading with each moment that passed. Hinata carried the steaming bowl slowly to the table, setting it down as the two continued to talk about this and that. When Sora noticed the delicious-smelling dish beside him though, his words broke off and he began downing the stew at a ravenous pace. Whoa, slow down. You'll throw it all up if you eat that fast. Hinata flushed as Naruto scolded the boy, who slowed down slightly before tipping the broth down his tea, disregarding the spoon. Naruto clucked his tongue as Hinata asked him if he'd like more. Yes, please, he chirped, holding up the bowl eagerly. Hinata smiled and took it up from him, filling the porcelain with more. It was eaten in much the same way the next 2 times. After the fourth serving, Sora's eyes had begun to droop sleepily and Naruto helped him up, careful to mind his back as he led him to the couch in the living room. Tomorrow I want you back with your team, do you hear me? I'm sending you on a mission to Sand soon. Gaara needs some help with an escort and everything's tied up at the moment. The boy didn't seem to hear him, only mumbling an, as Naruto shook his head again and smiled softly. Passed out as soon as he hit the couch. Must be those pain meds Iruka pumped him with. Naruto whispered, watching Hinata clean up after the second dinner. She washed the bowl gently and set in the rack after drying it with a simple blue and white plaid towel. Naruto leaned against the doorframe, watching her silently as she worked, eyes trained on her task as she wiped a countertop and made sure the sink was cleared. She hadn't heard him at all, he supposed. I'm going to bed. Is there anything you need? Hinata paused in putting the soup back in the plastic container and turned over her shoulder. No. I'm fine. Arigato. Naruto smiled. No, thank you. Not everyone is so tolerant of that kid. He has more enemies than friends. Hinata looked down at her wet hands and shrugged. He seems like a good boy. She murmured. Yeah, he is. Could you get him a blanket before you get to sleep? I'd probably end up tearing the closet down. Hinata laughed softly and Naruto's expression appeared lighter than before. His bruise was completely gone. Before she could ask, he turned and retreated to his study. He'd insisted she take the bedroom, refusing every possible excuse she could think of as to why she shouldn't. In the end there had been no discussion, only her being forced. Hinata brushed aside the busy, buzzing thoughts in her head and fought a yawn. Midnight. She was never used to staying up this late, even at the occasional sleepover of her girlhood. Through the clouds, the moon hung heavy and thick, spreading out her light on the yards and streets. Somewhere down over the crest of the hill where the house stood, two people spoke in hushed voices. A cat hissed and a trash can lid clinked. Hinata rubbed her eyes and flicked off the light over the sink, padding across the floor. The door to the closet slid effortlessly open with a small tug and she soon had collected a beige blanket in her arms, standing up to slide it closed with her foot. The boy didn't stir as she placed the blanket sleepily over him, but his eyes were wide open. Could you do me a favor? Hinata stared at the boy. She hadn't completely noticed he was awake. His head turned, the light brown strands of hair touching his forehead. Hinata knelt down. Do you need anything? Her voice was a slow whisper, Sora's stormy eyes pulling on her own. He seemed to think of what he was going to say, but decided against questioning her again. How come you were stuttering at sensei? You don't ever do that, at least, he doesn't say anything about it. Hinata flushed, caught completely off guard. Well, I. The boy smirked. Oh, I get it, you were getting nervous round, sensei. That's okay, he's pretty powerful you know. The best shinobi in the world. Still, you are his wife. I'd think you of all people wouldn't be so scared of him. Hinata was taken rather aback by the boy's biting words and the heavily sarcastic air that hung round him. Sora was unconvinced, staring at her with interest. Hinata tried to think of something to say. The boy was half right. She did get nervous around Naruto, no matter what age. I'm not scared of Naruto-kun. Her voice wavered and the desired effect didn't entirely take place as Sora continued to smile at her. I'm not. She flushed more and sighed, a bit defeated. Is it really that obvious that I was getting nervous? The boy nodded. Really? I must make him feel so uncomfortable. He must be so upset about everything. She sniffed a bit, tired and feeling a surge of emotions, mostly the overwhelming desire to cry. Sora, upon seeing his hostess's tears, felt incredibly bad. Hey, it's okay. I get nervous around sensei too sometimes. It's perfectly natural. Hinata only continued to rub her eyes, sniffling. I wish none of this would have happened. She whimpered, to which Sora became very upset, sitting up as best he could and wringing his hands. He was praying that he truly hadn't made her want to leave his beloved sensei, and although he was wrong, his words seemed to do some helping. Don't say that. Sensei really likes you. Loves you even. He talks about you all the time. You're really likable, even if you are acting weird and you always look out for me and the other kids. Hinata hiccuped softly, and eyed him, tears leaking a little. Moonlight poured from the windows and Sora stared at the pretty lady who always made him something to eat and asked how his day was when she saw him. The lady that was so soft and kind and smiled and smelled like flowers. Sensei's lady. The one he held hands with and took to the park and out to dinner and got worried and worked up over. The one who had done such special things for him. The one who was more like a mother to him than he'd ever dare admit. He remembered the first time he'd ever seen his sensei act so dumb. Sensei, you look stupid. Sora had been watching Naruto stand in front of the windows all afternoon, smiling at hats and flowers and summer dresses. His strong sensei walking into boutiques with simpering girls who offered him free samples, still in his Hokage's robes for CSES sake. I bet I do, don't I? I just got to find something for her. I want to surprise her tonight. She thinks I forgot about our anniversary. Naruto had smiled so wide Sora was sure his face was going to break off. And what's so great about a stupid anniversary either? Sora had rubbed the spot where Naruto had flicked him in the nose, scowling. Well, didn't you? You only just remembered yesterday. Sora, one day you're going to find a girl who makes you crazy. I just hope she's half as wonderful as my wife. I bet she's not that great, sensei. Sora had rolled his eyes as right there in the middle of Konoha's busiest street, Naruto had issued the list of things so appealing about his dumb old wife. You think my wife isn't great? That's because you're the stupid one. For one, she's the most beautiful kunoichi in the world, and she puts up with all of my antics. How's that for starters? Sora had frowned. Well, if she puts up with you. But wait, there's more. She cooks amazing ramen and she always folds my clothes the way I like, and she could kick your ass. Sensei. You want me to prove it? She has mastered the most elaborate defense jutsu I've ever seen, and I've seen about 1,000,000 of those. Yeah, but she couldn't beat me. She's a great kisser too. Sora had grimaced. You still forgot about her anniversary. Our anniversary. And she would never have said anything. Naruto's face had gone all soft then and Sora had been a bit surprised as he stared into the nearest shop they'd come across. She never would have. She's just too sweet. So, you see, that's why I have got to find something perfect. At least to make up for the little bit of trouble I've caused her. She's given up a lot for me. Like what, sensei? Naruto hadn't replied. Sora had closed his mouth and shoved his hands in his pockets, looking in the window, mimicking his teacher's movements. It was then that Sora had let the demure little items catch his eye. Hey sensei, does she have long hair? Naruto had spent a fortune on those hair combs. They were really nice, even Sora could admit. White ivory and real silver and amethyst flowers and those sparkly clear ones too. Naruto had beamed when he'd gotten them. Please don't cry. I didn't mean to make you upset. He really, really loves you, so don't leave him or anything, okay? Hinata continued to stare at him. Why you think he does? She asked, her voice so soft Sora barely heard it. Why do you look so surprised? Why wouldn't he love you? You're wonderful. Sora blushed bright red, I mean, you can cook nice and stuff. Hinata had giggled. Hey, what's so funny? Nothing. She smiled at him then, touching his head, please rest and heal so Naruto doesn't have to worry. Alright. Sora's face felt warm, and he saw how sleepy she was and nodded. Okay. Hey, you didn't stutter that time. Hinata shook her head, standing up and smoothing her clothes. No, I don't feel nervous anymore. Thank you, Sora-kun. Sora watched her disappear into the darkness. She sure had been acting strange. You must love him a lot too. At least, I think. Sensei's lucky. Sora yawned to himself, pulling the blanket up to his chin. Yeah, really, really lucky. Sora was gone the next morning. But only after cleaning out the refrigerator. Naruto, calm down. Hinata's shouts were upset as Naruto began to go towards the door saying things along the lines of, king rats and kids, and, good for nothings. Hinata didn't want him to hurt Sora. Not after all the courage she'd felt. The courage to make Naruto's love something worthwhile. Sometimes, Hinata has come to understand, life just can't go smoothly, and as much as she would have thought she could be easily forgotten, she can't disappear for 2 weeks and not be noticed. Hinata, are you home? Hinata stiffened, the afternoon stun hitting her back. She knew that voice. It was gruffer and deeper than she remembered, but she'd know that voice anywhere. Panicking, Hinata tried to remember what Naruto had said a few days earlier. Try not to answer the door, we'll just let them think you're sick till festival, we can at least think of something till then. Scrambling, Hinata got up from a plant book and nearby specimen she was attempting to learn about for the sliding door. Her pale hands fumbled with the handle, and she clearly heard the increased shouting from the front of the house. They'd be here in moments, they must have been able to smell her. Just have to get inside. She shouted internally, yanking it open. She had to get in before. There you are. Where have you been? Today was supposed to train, remember. Hinata felt a ripple of fear pass over her as she turned rigidly around. She squeezed her eyes shut. She still didn't know what this Kiba would look like, or Akamaru for that matter. K Kiba-kun. Akamaru, G good to see you. Her eyes pried open. Hey, don't forget Shino. Kiba smiled, fangs gleaming. Hinata flushed scarlet. Not good. Naruto was not going to be happy. She was breaking the rules. Hinata hastily flung some rice balls onto a plate and almost forgot about the kettle, catching it only as it started to scream. Something wrong, Hinata. You appear distracted. Hinata swallowed harshly as Shino stared up at her from behind his glasses and Kiba scratched his head. Yeah, something's different about you. I know it's big, but I can't put my finger on it. Beside him, Akamaru panted lazily and Hinata felt increasingly uncomfortable. No. Nothing out of the ordinary. She squeaked, practically slamming the food on the table in a fit of clumsiness. It wasn't so much them that were the problem, but it was their abilities to pry answers out of her. Shino alone could get her to say things she'd never dreamed of admitting, but with Kiba there it was almost too much. Besides, she could barely look at Kiba right now, let alone talk. He looked. Oh, where did she even start? He'd always been good looking, but now. His hair was longer, pulled back in a short ponytail, and his face had the same rugged handsomeness it had always employed, but now there was no doubt that Kiba was a man in the same way Naruto was a man. Testosterone practically leaked out of both of them, or at least she'd found with Naruto it did. Why me? She mumbled pathetically, setting about distributing tea as Kiba dug into the food, still half talking to a silent and suspicious Shino. What was that? Kiba chewed, tossing the rice ball Shino hadn't touched to Akamaru. Hinata turned around and attempted to smile. Nothing. She passed out tea at record speed and sat down, keeping a great deal of space between herself and her former teammates and honorary brothers, of sorts, searching desperately for something to tell them. Hinata, you sure you're okay? Anything you wanna talk about? Seriously, you look like you're about to throw up. Hinata gulped, feeling very hot and bothered. Must have been the sun. You should be more careful. Shino added, eyebrows lowered as he inspected her, most likely seeing straight her sorry excuses. Hi. Okay? Seriously, what's up? You're acting like you don't want us here. That's only half of it. Hinata made into her drink, praying neither caught it. What's only half of it? It's not Naruto, is it? No. Well. Both men stared at her, Kiba looking peeved and Shino increasingly more accusing. Hinata poked her fingers nervously, a habit that seemed to have recently resurfaced due to circumstances she couldn't control. So it is a Naruto problem. Knew it, Kiba announced, crossing his arms and grumbling. Shino too, nodded his head. Given your level of distress, I assume you are experiencing marital turbulence. Hinata found that she could only hang her own head wearily. That's not even the start. So, tell us about it. That bastard running you ragged or something. You don't look too skinny, hell you might even have put on a little weight. Hinata choked on her tea. Kiba, that was not polite. Shino reprimanded, looking back over at Hinata, pushing up his glasses. You do look healthier. She coughed, attempting to start some kind of defense against the two. So if it's not starvation, what is it? He's not running around on you, is he? Because if he is, I swear. Kiba, Hinata cried, holding up her arms in distress. The young man looked at her and his face melted from its previously savage appearance. Oh, okay, then. Well, he said, easing himself back down. Akamaru too relaxed, fur relaxing like his master's own hair that had started to stand on end. If it's none of these, then what is the problem, Hinata? It often helps alleviate stress to speak of such things, and as a close friend and former team leader, I encourage you to tell me things that bother you. Hinata felt defeated. This is very hard to tell you. You wouldn't understand. Naruto wants it to be private, she said quietly, feeling very guilty for not being strong enough to tell two of her closest friends the reason she was just now starting to function normally. Kiba stared at her and Shino continued his gaze from before. It's SNUFF, snuff snuff. What is it, Akamaru? You smell it too. Hinata's face turned crimson as Akamaru's massive head shoved itself under her arm and up and down her body. She sat there, being pushed around by the huge dog as it inspected every inch of her, Kiba sniffing the air and Shino looking at them all with absolutely no expression. He was pretty much used to such behaviors after so many years on the same team. Impromptu sniffing was not out of the ordinary at all. But for Hinata it was a little more awkward. Especially when Akamaru started to sniff her chest liberally, and then backed away, a most peculiar face on his doggy features. I thought I smelled something weird since I came in here, Kiba started, taking another whiff and looking at Hinata, but I wasn't gonna say anything, still. What is it, Kiba? Do you think it's the strange, mysterious, illness Ino-san spoke of? Shino looked skeptically at Hinata, the one she contracted sometime last week. Hinata made a move to say something, but found that Shino was daring her to make some kind of argument with his eyes and decided to watch Kiba instead. I've definitely smelled it before, just can't remember. Suddenly, Kiba stopped sniffing and his eyes went wide as dinner plates. Akamaru whined from his place by Kiba's legs and Shino looked at his friend with something that might be traced back to curiosity. What? Hinata cried, staring at him in alarm. Kiba blinked and looked at Hinata before blinking again. Sorry. If you didn't want me to know, I'm sorry. He mumbled, a light blush fanning his cheeks. Hinata felt panic stir and almost reached across the table to shake the answer out of him. What is it, Kiba? Is she really sick? Kiba shook his head. None of my business. I should have waited. He looked up at Hinata sheepishly. I won't tell anyone. You say when you're ready. Really? Sorry I pressed. Suddenly, he was up out of his seat and yanking up Shino with him, a cheesy excitement taking over his features. Come on Shino, we should go. Shino, not used to such force, sent an icy glare at Kiba. What is the meaning of the COME on Shino? We should really go. Kiba grit out staring at him. Shino furrowed his brow and turned to Hinata who appeared rather shaken. Will you be attending festival on Wednesday? Hinata, who had stood as well, followed Kiba as he dragged Shino and Akamaru out of the house and onto the front drive. Hi. Naruto says it's Manda. I mean, yes, I'm going with Naruto. Shino nodded and then Kiba shrieked as an army of beetles marched across the arm-fisted into Shino's clothes. The 2 days till festival dragged by, but Naruto got more and more excited with every moment. This is going to be great. Oh, that's right. You've never been to one? Well, that one time I took you, but that was kind of disastrous. He exclaimed on that Wednesday morning. Apparently the whole village had the day off, a kind of holiday. Outside in the streets, shopkeepers hung lanterns and streamers and decorations around the roads and booths were being set up by the river. Hinata, who had received a surprise visit from Sakura on Tuesday, had been given an elaborate recount in specific detail of just what the festival was all about. Naruto started it 2 years ago as an anniversary of peace. He invited diplomatic families from all over the nations to come celebrate. It was a huge hit. Hinata had sat, marveling as Sakura bounced the adorable baby on her knees, both women drinking hot coffee and eating a small tray of cakes that Sakura had bought earlier that morning. The woman's hair was braided that afternoon and her clothes were a typical display of Uchiha crimson and white with Sakura's trademarked beige thrown in. Hinata had sat, feeling somewhat normal as she chatted away, Haru staring at her with wide, black eyes. Anyway, the whole deal is really important to him. I'm sure he's already told you they'll expect to see you, right? Hinata had nodded slowly. Yes, he says it'll be an excellent way to dispel all the rumors. He thinks if I have some fun, that maybe he'll be able to relax a little. Hinata's fingers tightened on her mug. She felt badly, she should have known that. She should have had him tell her over dinner as they sat across from each other, talking about each other's days. Or at night when they were on the couch flipping through channels, Anything but the stuttering she couldn't seem to get over every time she looked at him or that mile-long distance that engulfed him. He was trying so hard to make her comfortable, but it only made her feel worse. Sakura had let her eyes drop momentarily to her son. You've seemed tense lately. It's been getting to him. He thinks it's his fault. Hinata stared at her tea, her reflection that of a guilty woman she was still unsure about. He shouldn't feel like that. It's not his fault. Sakura sighed lazily and tugged on Hatsuharu's black hair. You know, there was a time when I didn't want you two to be together. Hinata looked up suddenly to find Sakura staring out the window, hand still stroking the ebony strands beneath Haru's ear. I thought that you would always make him feel that way, inadequate. Hinata's eyes were round as dinner plates. Sakura, not wanting Naruto and her to be together. Sakura looked at her in alarm. Oh, don't worry, I definitely don't think that now. It was stupid actually. You both are, well, when everything's normal, you're basically perfect for each other. Hinata sighed in relief and Sakura let herself relax before continuing. But there was one time I almost said something, well, more like yelled it considering my temper. Hinata licked her lips in apprehension. Sakura, do you mind telling me? I promise I won't judge you, but maybe it will help. Sakura nodded in approval. Yeah, I think it would help you. Hinata's returning smile gave Sakura a wave of hope. It was pouring rain outside and Sakura had been given a hell of a day. That last mission to Demon Country had not ended very well and a mudslide outside of the village had left the small team in quite the state of injury. But Sakura could handle the broken clavicle and lacerations. Hell, she could even handle the one with head trauma. It was Naruto she was having trouble handling. So, what brings you to my hospital, Naruto? Anything I should know about? Sakura had stated, coming into the room. In truth, she hadn't spoken to her friend in almost a month. He'd been training night and day according to Kakashi, in order to get into Anbu before he turned 20. She went straight to the sink, rinsing her hands and soaping them before drying them with the paper towels beside her head, and finally turned to face her patient with a face that screamed, "This better be good." What she found disturbed her. Naruto was slumped on the examination table, huge bags hugging the skin on his cheeks. His blue eyes were pale and his hair was dull and he was looking at least 10 pounds underweight. He smiled wearily. Hiya, Sakura-chan. Ruka, made me come. Something about me being too skinny. Sakura closed her mouth and shook her head, striding quickly over to him. You're telling me, you're practically skin and bones. What exactly have you been doing, you idiot? Naruto coughed and let out a small chuckle. I have to train. He paused as she shone a light into his eyes. Hiyashi says if I don't make it into Anbu before my birthday I can't have her, something about being worthy or a steady income or something. I get so tired when I get home I don't even have energy to eat or anything, and I keep forgetting about groceries. Sakura felt anger pulse under her fingers. Of course it was Hiyashi. He'd been stirring up nothing but hell since the day Naruto showed even the barest interest in Hinata. That damn man. She hissed out, look at you. You're sick as a dog. If you keep this up, Naruto, your immune system's going to give out. Even if you do have a demon sleeping in your gut, he can't stop you from getting pneumonia. Naruto pulled back from Sakura, and sighed. I have to, Sakura-chan. I can't give up on her. I just can't. I have to do it for her. Do it for her, my ass. Where is she now? According to Kiba, Hinata and you haven't even spoken since the last time you talked to that son of Ab she calls a father. Naruto looked angry, and for a moment Sakura was worried he was going to yell at her, but he relaxed instantly. She has a good reason, I'm sure. Sakura stood back and crossed her arms, pissed off beyond reason. She should be here. She's the reason you're king yourself. Working to death just to be with her. She could at least show up. Sakura-chan, please, it's not like that. Her dad is really convinced I can't even attach myself to their name. He doesn't even care if the fourth was my father, not that I care either. I've always carried myself independently, and I'm not about to start now. Well then maybe it's not even worth it. Sakura growled, staring at her friend. He looked at her, eyes flickering and coughed. Don't say that. I'm serious. All at once the sound of shoes slid into the office. Sakura and Naruto caught sight of Hinata, drenched to the bone, wheeling down the hall through the observation window shades. Well, look who's here. Sakura huffed, opening the door into the hall. He's in. Sakura was cut off as Hinata pushed past her and into the room. Gamen, she whispered as Sakura was jostled back. A biting back itching on her wouldn't have hurt her anyways though, because she was staring at the boy on the steel table, and Naruto was also staring at her. Hina-chan, you're all wet, he said simply as she stared at him through her soaked hair. She was deesping water on the floor as she walked towards him, slowly, and then finally stood right in front of him. Hina-chan, is something wrong? Naruto asked, touching her shoulder. The girl trembled beneath her fingers and Sakura saw her hands clenched at her sides. Why? Naruto looked taken aback as the quivering word shot out of her shaking lips. Why are you doing this? Naruto looked at her, his brow furrowing. What do you mean, why? Hinata brought her head up and her eyes were searing. I want to know, why, you're doing this to yourself. I want to know why right now. Sakura's eyes widened in shock. Never before had she seen Hinata so blatantly angry, and never in a million years would she have guessed it would be directed toward Naruto. Naruto's blue eyes darkened in anger. You want to know, why, I'm doing this. Do you? Don't you already know? I'm doing this so we can be together, so maybe, just maybe, I won't blacken your precious family name. Isn't that what your father wants, Hinata, for me to prove myself? Isn't that what you wanted? Slap. The sound echoed across the room as Naruto's mouth fell open a fraction, blue eyes wide. Hinata sucked in a breath as her hand shivered, still raised. How dare you? She whispered, voice thick, how dare you say that I would ever. Her voice grew in volume as she spoke, ever want you to do this to yourself? How dare you say that to me? Barker. Naruto stared at her as she shook, her hand coming to cover her face. Look at you. You're wasting yourself away. I'm not worth this. I never, ever said I was worth this. When Kakashi told me, she raised her head and looked at him severely. When Kakashi told me Iruka had to make you come to the hospital, I didn't believe him. I couldn't believe that you would go so far as to let this happen. Do you know how much I worried for you? Kakashi said you weren't eating and my father keeps me tied in that house. There was nothing I could do. Sakura felt her heart break as Hinata sobbed, her tears mingling with the leftover. Reached out his hands and took either side of Hinata's pale face in his palms. Gamen, he whispered, brining her towards him. I'm so sorry, Hina-chan. I'm sorry. Her arms wrapped round his shirt, digging into the fabric. IW was so worried. She gasped. Sakura put her hand to her lips and looked away, blinking back. The story had made Hinata feel rushes of relief. It was proof that she and Naruto were not perfect, and if they could make it through her father, they could make it now. Not to mention that she had grown up inside and out at some point, and if she did it once she would do it again. It was a ray of hope in a fast darkening place for Hinata, and unlike Sora's own speeches and Kakashi's words of encouragement, it gave her something to hold on to. The memory was now ingrained in her brain, and with it she felt she might actually be able to make one tinier step towards something bigger. So as she stood in the kitchen with the boy who starved himself for her, going on about the festival, she found herself feeling very courageous. She took a deep breath and looked at her husband with all the strength she could muster. She started slowly, it sounds like a wonderful time. Naruto's mouth had spread into a huge smile. Wow, Hina-chan, you didn't even stutter. By 7 o'clock sharp, night had fallen on the village and suddenly, everything came alive. Hinata stood on the street, her arm tucked into the crook of Naruto's arm and looked anxiously about her. Don't worry, I'm right here. Just be yourself. Everyone loves you, he whispered, grinning at the child who passed him and waved. People from all over were milling about in families and pairs. A few young couples went by and some blushing mad genin as well, all dressed in their best yukata for the occasion. Hinata's own, she'd found on her side of the closet thankfully, was a bright turquoise adorned with yellow and pink flowers and pearly white dragonflies. It fit wonderfully and Hinata was glad that it was modest and fashionable. She'd been worried about what Sakura had meant when she'd said, Ino bought your yukata last year. But even she, with her makeup done and her hair combed back with the lovely combs she'd found in a large jewelry box, was pale in comparison to the sun that shone beside her. Decked in red and orange instead of the traditional Hokage's robes and with his hair somewhat done, Naruto was unlike anything she'd ever seen. She blushed as he ushered her past streets and the whispering crowds that passed them, and when her arm became jostled from his rough hand captured hers as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Hokage-sama. Hokage-sama. Look what we won. They had just passed a game booth where Naruto had tried his luck at winning when the tiny shrill voices had broke from their stupor. Turning, Naruto and Hinata laid eyes on 3 giggling little girls, no more than 7 Hinata presumed. All 3 of them were blushing and shifting their weight as they held out the prizes for him to inspect. You won that. What game? Naruto exclaimed, staring at a small turtle in a tiny cardboard box. The girl, whose front teeth were missing, laughed with her friends. This is not a game, Hokage-sama. You fish for them. Naruto's eyes widened in mock surprise and Hinata couldn't help but smile too, hiding her mouth with her sleeve nervously. Suddenly all 3 girls looked up at her in awe. Hinata-hime, you look so pretty. The first girl squealed, putting her hands on her small face. Hinata-hime, do you think this is a nice color? My mother bought it for me. The other said, showing her obi. Hinata looked at each and blinked. Ah. The 3 looked at her in return, faces shining in the lantern light. Hinata closed her eyes and when she opened them, her smile was enormous. She bent over slightly and suddenly was on eye level with the 3. You all look like princesses. Don't they? Hinata turned around and the 3 turned with her to find 3 boys whispering to themselves. All of them were at least 12 and they were all staring at her. When she addressed them, they all blushed and stood up straighter. The 3 little girls all put their hands to their faces and began to giggle excitedly. These 3 princesses deserve something special, don't you think? I say you treat 'em to dango as a start. Hinata straightened and looked at the boys with a small smile and the 3 blushed and laughed nervously. Hi Hinata-san. One said, stepping past them to offer his hand to the 3 squealing girls. The other 2 looked at each other and shrugged, finally inching past to follow suit. When they had disappeared, Hinata had immediately put her hand to her mouth. Oh, I can't believe I did that. She whispered, staring at the ground. I suppose, well, every girl wishes it sometime. You are incredible, Naruto said softly, tugging at her hand. Those 3 boys were from sound. Hinata couldn't say anything, only follow as Naruto led her onto the next booth and the next giggling group of children. The night wore on with more fried food than Hinata thought imaginable and more people than Hinata had ever thought she could see in one night. Even Neji was there with Tenten, his wife she'd immediately inferred, dragging along a stubborn Tetsuya and a rosy-cheeked baby dubbed by her nephew as Nao-chan. But that night something far more important happened than seeing Shikamaru Nara almost taken out by his wife for lack of interest. It happened that when one is the wife of the Hokage, one is offered a lot of free things. Food, game tries, coupons, anything that could be handed out at festival was given to her on site. And one of these things was sake. Now Hinata was not a big drinker even though she'd had sake several times at home as ceremony, and there was once that mission when they were 14 and mistaken for older civilians. That had not ended well. It turns out that Kiba can be a very persuasive person when intoxicated and the whole idea of, trust me, we can swim in a fountain was not exactly as correct in experiment as it was in theory. So when the man had eagerly persisted that the Hokage and his wife try at least a cup full of his famous rice wine, who was Hinata to decline? Hinata was only on her 3rd glass, standing by the booth, watching in a very shy happiness as Sasuke and Naruto attempted to win a stuffed bear, each failing miserably as Sakura stood by shooting glares at her husband. It was only coincidence that Kiba should show up with Shino and upon seeing her beverage come rushing over. Hinata's wrist was grabbed up just as she'd raised the cup to her lips and much to her surprise was downed by not her, but an Inuzuka. Kiba, she exclaimed, staring at him in disbelief. The boy dropped the glass on the ground and stared at her. What are you doing, Hinata? Don't you know? He shouted. Hinata shook her head in confusion, a bit loose thanks to the alcohol, and waited for him to answer. A crowd of drunken shinobi passed by with shouts and Hinata missed the reply, stepping closer. What? She asked again, this time her voice raised. Sakura turned towards the 2 and Naruto did as well, just about to sigh in defeat, just as Kiba opened his mouth. I said, he shouted louder, that's bad for the baby. Hinata couldn't believe her ears. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.